quick update. Now, I got into some short-term trades with a tight stop loss over the last couple days because I thought we might push higher, even though the Stochs model was indicating a trend reversal that we would come back down and get a little bit of a correction. Sure enough, we did get the correction, so I got stopped out on those short-term plays, which is fine. They were low-risk trades for the most part, where I was able to apply a tight stop loss. I took a loss on 5, 6 trades. So it's easy to think, oh, maybe I should close out some of my trades, like Link, or maybe my big premium only trade that you guys are aware of if you're in premium, or Soul, or some of those big breakout calls, because I can walk away with a nice big profit. But it's not worth it. Like, I don't want to close out those trades and then I'll be mad that I closed out on those trades and missed out on substantial profits once we bounce back up. I'd rather ride this correction out. So that's what I'm doing. Like Link, for instance, we came back down a little bit, not a huge amount. We're only back to the 382 from the main fib retracement from this whole run up, so it's not a substantial correction. But look at the 4-hour Stochs. The 4-hour Stochs getting really low. We're really close to a reversal on these. The daily trend reversal is bigger. So the daily Stochs reversal tells me we're going to get a larger correction. However, we have gone hyper bullish several different times over this entire last sequence. Even here, right, look at this last dip. We had that initial run up, and we only had a couple red candles here, right, before breaking up again. So that short-term correction was so quick, we barely even corrected before going back up. So right here, we have this red day. I think, based on the 4-hour model, we're probably going to bounce pretty soon. We're probably 1 or 2 candles away from bouncing. We're going to go back up. We might not get back to the prior top, or we may. We'll see how things play out. But based on the 4-hour model, we should see a bounce, and then we'll see what happens with the daily. If the daily is a confirmed bearish reversal, meaning we trend back down and get more of a correction on the daily chart, several days of a correction, overall, based on the weekly and the monthly, we're still in this big bull run up, right? But short term, we will get corrections dipping down during that period. So this daily correction could last several days, but we're not exactly sure how the timing is going to work out yet. It would be helpful to look at the majors. So check out, say, BTC and Ethereum, for instance. On BTC, the 4 hours getting really low, but this is where you can kind of see how things have been trending. This is sort of what we're seeing. BTC is a perfect example. Let me show you the daily. This is actually a really good example. You notice how we went hyper bullish on the daily, right? The daily Stochs got really high, and then it stayed at this high overbought level all this time as the price continued just running upward, right? That's hyper bullish. That was happening because we had such a bullish weekly model. The weekly model on BTC is getting pretty high, so we could, in the near future, come back down for a multi-week correction. But the last time we barely got that multi-week correction. I mean, it barely corrected. It was like a week, and then we went right back up. Overall, the monthly still has tons of bullish activity left for us. So we have multiple months of this bull run that I've been telling you guys about. I predicted a multi-month bull run to all-time highs, and that's exactly what's happened, and we're still only halfway through it. But on the lower time frames, you can see exactly what I'm talking about with the hyper bullish action on the daily model. So what happened on the daily? We had that hyper bullish run, and then we turned down. See this daily correction? We got all the way back down to these lower levels on the daily. Now we're starting to turn, or we're pretty soon we're going to start to turn up and get a big bounce. We're probably going to see a shift again. If you remember, over the last week, we saw the majors flatten out and come back down a bit while the altcoins started pumping like crazy. And I was able to do really well in a lot of my alt trades because we saw that disconnect. The majors moved sideways or came down as the alts really went up. So in the case of Ethereum, same thing. Like we had 1, 2, 3, 4 candles in a row of just going sideways, a little bit down, but mostly just sideways. Not much of a correction here. But we had plenty of opportunity for the Stochs to bleed off a little bit. We don't have as much of a full reset on Ethereum as with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is really a good indication of how other things will play out. Especially, like I said, it's a really good example because we also have the 4 hour. Not only does the daily show exactly what I'm talking about and what I expect on the altcoins, but if I drop down to the 4 hour, you can see overall we have a daily trend down, and during that trend, what you're seeing is a big move down and a small move up, and a big move down and a tiny move move up, and then more correction down, right? So during this period, and this is really helpful to kind of illustrate, if you see the last swing up, swing down, on the 4 hour Stoch, you'll see it was a tiny move up, right? And then a bigger move down. Now we're in this main support area, so we're really close to that overall bullish reversal. The 4 hour is going to reverse pretty much right here on BTC. I might even consider opening a BTC long pretty soon because we're in such a big reversal zone here with this. We have Ichimoku dynamic support from the top of the cloud and the 99 EMA, so we're probably going to bounce here. And that might start to bounce on the daily too, because remember, the 4 hour is about to turn up, and the daily is getting really close as well. The daily is super low. It's not quite in oversold territory, but it's getting close. Once that daily reversal starts, we'll be in a really good position with the majors. But again, I'm showing you what's happening on the 4 hour because it's a perfect illustration of like what I was showing you on Link. In the case of Link, we are mid-correction now. The 4 hour came down a lot, and this is where I'm expecting a bounce, right? So we're probably going to, Blink, we had this big move down, and now after this big move down, all these red, this is so annoying on the phone. All right, so after this big move down, bounce up. Based on the 4 hour Stoch about to reverse and turn up, we're going to get a bounce up. But if you notice on BTC, because we were in an overall daily downtrend, we ended up getting a bigger move down and a tiny bounce up, and a bigger move down and a tiny bounce up. So that's what we'll probably see based on the 4 hour. So we're going to get a bounce here, but going all the way back to the prior top and even higher is unlikely if we're starting that overall daily trend reversal down. And this makes it kind of tough because we have a conflict here. We have the altcoins indicating to us a daily trend reversal, right? So the daily Stoch on Link, for instance, is really high, and it looks like it's about to turn down and start a new downtrend, right? See that right here? So let's pick another one. Let's pick maybe Sol. In the case of Sol, same thing. The daily is going to be really high because we just had this really nice big bounce, right? Same thing with Sun, most likely. Oh no, Sun's actually a good one. Sun is nice and low. So this play I had on Sun, 31% breakout call. What a sick, sick trade. The daily is about to turn up. So this is actually, if you look at my analysis that I shared in my various trade channels, I talked about how Sun might be starting a really big move. Because part of it was the daily being really low. So this is one that actually looks like the daily might be starting a new trend up. So that's really good. Let's see where FIL looks. FIL is kind of in the middle. Let's check ADA. ADA is actually one that was really low too. So ADA could be in a really good position for that big breakout run. MTL, that one's pretty high and starting to flatten out and possibly turn down. Look at like Matic. Matic is still pretty high, so it's certainly not down to those lower levels. Looking for a bounce, not close to bouncing yet. How's Algo? Okay, Algo is also pretty high, looking like it might be ready to turn down. So you'll see we have a bunch of the alts that have a high Stoch oscillator, looking like they're about to turn down, starting a downtrend, right? But in the case of the daily chart on BTC, it looks like BTC is about to start an uptrend on the daily. So there's two ways it plays out. We get a continuation of what we've seen. We've seen the alts going up while the majors come down. Before that, the majors were really going up and the alts weren't doing much, right? So now it could go two ways. Either BTC gets that nice bounce and we see Bitcoin break up and make a big multi-day bull run while the altcoins flatten out, come down and correct a little bit more. Or the other possibility, when Bitcoin starts that multi-day bullish move up, which happens regardless, right? No matter which one of these scenarios plays out, Bitcoin turns bullish. So either Bitcoin turns bullish as the alts flatten out and come down more, or Bitcoin turns bullish and that reverses everything else and carries everything else. So Link and all those others, those various alts that have a really high Stoch that looks like they're about to come back down and continue correcting for multiple days, those altcoins can go hyper bullish on the daily and continue going upwards. So not just the alts with a low Stoch, where it looks like we're starting a new momentum trend turning up, but even the alts that look like they're pretty maxed out on the oscillators, right? Those that have the RSI and the Stochs that are really high could still go higher and go hyper bullish if Bitcoin carries the weight. And since Bitcoin, again, is about to turn bullish, we're in a good position to potentially start that in sync action again, where instead of having Bitcoin and the altcoins move in different directions, we'll see them come back together and move together. So Bitcoin again, lower Stoch on the daily model. We're really close to that bullish reversal, which is going to be a multi-day bull run. But even more short term, based on the 4 hour, I think a bounce is imminent. So if anybody was considering closing out their longs to take profit, right? So most of my trades, especially all the trades that didn't have a tight stop loss, are really good right now. I'm either sitting on a nice big profit, or most of my profits in some of those trades got erased. So now I have to decide, am I going to get out of the trades with like a tiny profit or wait until it bounces back and I get those gains back? Because at one point I might have been up 10%. Now I'm only up 1% or 2%, right? So when you're making that decision, you have to base it on what do you think is going to happen next. And right now, I think we are going to see an imminent bounce. How big that bounce is going to determine what my ultimate decision is. So in the case of Bitcoin, 4 hour Stoch, really low. This correction had a full cycle. We came all the way back down. Now we're about to bounce. Do we get one of these small sideways bounces where we go to the side and a little bit up? Or do we get a nice big green candle over the next 3, 4, 5 candles of the day? Do we get one or two nice big green candles, which brings me back up to pretty nice profits on those alt trades? That's why I have to wait to make that decision. So right now we're starting that 4 hour reversal. We're very close. It's imminent. I would say within the next one or two candles. So either right now, where there's 4 hours left on this candle, so over the next 4 hours, or possibly one more candle beyond that. So it could theoretically take as long as 8 hours. But once we do get that bounce over the next 4 to 8 hours, as we start that bounce and we see how it's performing, if we're getting a nice recovery bounce, then this short-term correction is over and we're going to continue upward. We're going to potentially even see that hyper bullish action on the alts like I was talking about, and that's going to start the daily multi-day bull run. If we get a small bounce and we go sideways and a little bit up and we break into the cloud here, if that happens, there's a good chance we're going to maintain that correction into tomorrow. So that's why it's really important to watch what happens next. If by tonight, in another 10, 12 hours from now, I might decide that I want to close out some of my trades that are in a nice big profit so I can take those gains. It's unlikely I'll make that decision, but it's possible. But we have to see what happens over this next sequence here. So we're going to get a bounce very shortly, and then we'll see where we go from there. I don't think, because we're still in this correction, we're talking about whether or not we're going to see the correction end, right? So it's not a good time to open new longs, even though I'm expecting a bounce, since there's a decent probability this bounce is going to be a smaller bounce and potentially just a sideways bounce. It's not worth the risk to get into longs right now. I'd wait until the overall daily trend turns up, or once we get some sort of bullish confirmation. That's when I would get into some new trades. So for now, we're kind of stuck in the middle. I wouldn't short because there's a chance we get the bullish reversal, and then we have the altcoins kind of match up with Bitcoin and give us a multi-day bull run. So I wouldn't short because that's very much possible. And I'm not going to long right now because we still need to get some sort of confirmation if this correction is indeed over. If this is going to be a multi-day correction beyond this 4 hour correction, we should know today. So no